And I think we're at 12:02, so I think we can get started. See a lot of familiar names here, so I know a lot of you have heard this, heard and joined us for the last two installments of the 2020 Day Show. So welcome everyone to our third installment, our third Tuesday Talks series. I'm Andrew Robinson, Adcraft president and vice president at Warner Media. Hi to my Warner Media folks I see on the call here. On behalf of the entire Adcraft board of directors, can't thank you enough for your support of Adcraft and taking an hour out of your day here today. At 114 years old, Adcraft we're still the oldest marketing association in the country. We've remained a vital part of the Detroit marketing community for those 114 years. And due to your participation in events like today, we're going to be around for much longer. So thank you for all your support. Some housekeeping here. On the next slide, we've got a lot of exciting events coming up, including one that I'm really excited about. It's our first ever Adcraft drive-in movie night. So bring your families, bring your friends, tell your neighbors. Let's pack out Canterbury Village on July 9th. Registration is going to be opening very soon. We hope to sell this baby out quickly. When was the last time you went anywhere to see a movie? I'll tell you, it's probably been about 3.5 months. So join us on July 9th. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We'll be opening up that registration shortly. So if you're not following us, please do so, and you'll be first to know when that registration opens. Got to thank the members of the Adcraft's board and the committee of Day Show that have made this happen, especially Jeff Cruz and Lou Eklund, who are our Day Show program chairs. The hard work that went into this, I can't even begin to tell you. So we thank you guys so much. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the man that I just spoke of, Mr. Jeff Cruz. Jeff is an Adcraft board member. We reeled him back in onto the executive board this year for good reason. He's a chief creative officer at MRM McCann, and he'll be moderating today's chat. He's a gold and grand Effie award winner, and just an all-out creative leader in the Detroit market and outside. He's known to me as one of the most creative, thoughtful leaders that I've ever come in contact with. And his talent, he's as talented as he is selfless. He's one of the guys that goes above and beyond every day for everyone that he meets. So we're really thankful to have Mr. Cruz as part of this community and a big part of Adcraft. You'll see that Jeff wholeheartedly believes that ideas power everything. He brings that to every board meeting and everything he does, and that a little Detroit hustle and muscle never hurts. So without further ado, to turn it over to the two that we really want to hear from today, the creatives that keep this industry exciting, fresh, and just cool. I think you're gonna like what you hear today. Mr. Cruz, take it away, my friend.
Can everyone see me, hear me?
We sure can.
All right, technology's hard, even for a guy who works at a digital shop. Thank you for the way too kind words, Andrew, much appreciated. As many of you know, or hopefully know, the theme for this series of Tuesday Talks for the Adcraft Day Show is connected by craft. And Tara, who I had the pleasure to get to know over the last 5-6 weeks, is certainly qualified to speak intelligently and passionately about that. I also tell you that the way we got connected is through craft. One of my creative directors, Colleen Hill, was working on a Cadillac project with Hiatus. Tara's husband, Joshua, works at Hiatus, and that's how I got to find out about the amazing things that Tara is doing and has done both at General Motors and Nike. And to tell you a little bit more about her, she is currently a color and trim designer at GM. Prior to that, she worked in Portland, Oregon as a color designer at Nike. And you'll find out a little bit more about, she's worked on some Nike basketball stuff with Mr. LeBron James. She's also got deep roots to Michigan and Detroit. She went to the College for Creative Studies right here in Detroit, and also went on to receive her MFA in color materials from the University of Michigan. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to a person who I've become a very quick and fast fan of, Tara Ellis.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear and see me okay? Hope that's a yes. So today, as Jeff mentioned, I'm going to share a little bit about color and trim design and what that looks like, what that means both in the apparel industry, like I said, at my experience at Nike, as well as what that looks like in the automotive space. It'll take me about 20 minutes to go through, and then I think we'll have a little bit of time to chat at the end. So let me share my screen here. All right. So like I said, I'm a color and trim designer, and I'm not sure how many of you are privy to what that is or what that, that industry looks like. So I just kind of wanted to start with the definition of what that is. So color and trim design is all about designing a trend-relevant aesthetic, color, and material strategy for a product while prioritizing the wants and needs of a target consumer. So that's the kind of like, I would say, textbook definition, but I'm all about visuals as a designer. So I'd also love to take you through just what that looks like. And this is very much like a simplified, and I don't want to say watered down, but it is very much a simplified visual of the process. But hopefully it just gives you a good idea of kind of the steps and the gates that kind of go into it. So for the apparel industry and most industries, we like to start with the consumer. So let's call this person Alex. Alex is the center of everything that we do, is our focus, and we want to design for them and for their needs. So in terms of the next step, we need to identify what they need. So in Alex's case, they need a shirt that they can play basketball in, but also look cool in. So there are a couple of things that I identified that get everybody's brains going and thinking. For me, as a color and trim designer, I'm looking at that, understanding that that shirt may need like sweat wicking properties. The material that we use may need to be mesh or breathable, but all the while still looking cool and still looking like something that Alex wants to wear out and about, because after all, that's what they're after. Next, there's also a huge design team that kind of works towards, you know, filling that product gap, figuring out how we can meet Alex's needs. So there's an apparel designer in this process that will determine Alex wants a baggy fit for their shirt, or something a little boxy, or we need pockets so that Alex can put his cell phone or their cell phone into the pocket so that they can play basketball freely. And we'll have a graphic designer that comes in and says, based on what Alex is looking at or what trends they're inspired by, we're going to add stripes or a graphic detail there. This team also looks like product managers, marketing, lots of individuals who are gathering data and research to validate that Alex exists as a consumer. And then there's also tons of designers where we're having fun working together, figuring out how we can best design for them. Next is kind of where I come in as the color designer. So Alex is looking for this shirt, but there's also a range of Alexes out there. Some who are looking for a staple, or maybe something that is a little bit more toned down or versatile. So we need to offer something that's maybe black or white, or something kind of in the neutral color space. Maybe Alex is looking for something a little more sporty or expressive. So I need to make sure that when I'm designing for this shirt, that there's also that option when they go shopping at a Nike store or Dick's Sporting Goods or online, or even something that's super expressive. And that's where like a fun print or pattern comes in. And in this case, Alex is super stoked on the printed top and they're ready to party. So next for automotive, it kind of looks the same way, but obviously the product is so different. We're still starting with Alex once again. For the automotive process, the consumer leads everything that we do, always goes back to them and their needs. However, the needs, as you could imagine, or just areas that we're trying to design for, look quite a bit bigger. So as opposed to just a shirt that Alex may wear for 2 years, or hopefully Alex is more sustainably minded, he'll keep it forever. But in the event that, for the automotive space, we need to make sure that the needs are encapsulated for this product that, you know, you're investing a little bit more money in, maybe a little bit more research or a longer duration of what, or how long you're going to keep it. So we're thinking about, does Alex have pets? Does Alex have kids? What is Alex carrying in this vehicle? So then as we're going to design this product, as you can imagine, needs are scaled, product is scaled, amount of parts and pieces, everything is scaled up, cost, everything. So as you can imagine, the team also grows. So in this case, designing the product, I'm working with engineers, more designers for both interior, exterior, different marketing counterparts, once again, project managers, also once again. So there's definitely some overlaps, but the size grows considerably. And then where I come in, I kind of have a similar role, you know, catering to Alex or the Alexes out there, making sure that there's a wide offering and a wide range of choices for them and for their needs. So in this particular situation, I just extracted seats. That's only one small part of the automotive puzzle, but some elements I'm designing for there would be, is this fabric seat on the far left, is that going to be, you know, a better choice for Alex because it's maybe a more entry-level price point? Do they like fabric a little bit better? For that middle seat, that's maybe like a sporty offering. So something that might have a little bit more of a durable materiality or a aesthetic that's a little bit more sporty, you know, maybe a little bit more of a higher price point, but fits Alex's needs a little bit better. And then finally on the far right, that seat might be a premium offering. Does Alex need something that looks incredible, feels super premium? Is that something what they value more? So kind of determining needs, what they value, what they're willing to pay for, and crafting a really great aesthetic across all of the elements of a vehicle, interior and exterior, to just fit their vision. So in this case, Alex chose the RS seat and they are stoked. Great shirt, great seat for their vehicle. And yeah, hopefully that gives you a little bit of a visual as to what my day-to-day looks like. But next, I'm just going to dive into some projects and kind of take you through what that project or that color and trim process looks like tangibly. And this is a project, one of the final projects that I did at my time at Nike. And it's a basketball apparel collection that was just a really wonderful culmination of ideas and teamwork. And I'll just kind of take you through that process and kind of what that looks like. So to start, like I said, we always look at our consumer and kind of trying to determine what their needs are and how we can wrap that up into a narrative that you know, works for them. So in this this particular collection, our goal was to bring a little bit of the NBA, so a little bit of what this basketball consumer is seeing on court in NBA games, and bring it to the apparel that they find online or in store. So those are kind of two different product channels. So an area that Nike added to the NBA was this concept of city edition jerseys. And these are all about an on-court uniform that brings the energy and like city pride into a uniform. So they extract elements of, in this case, like Atlanta, and bring that into the uniform. So for Detroit, they extracted elements like the Motor City, and they used lots of like really beautiful ranges of grays and automotive elements to bring into their on-court uniform. So our goal was to kind of connect, like I said, what the kids are seeing on court and bring that to them. And we used a handful of cities that had like particularly inspiring uniforms that helped inspire our spring summer 2020 collection. So the idea is to create these basketball specific narratives that resonated with our consumer. So I'm just going to show you a snapshot of that first city, which was Atlanta, that we focused on. And it's all about the peach tree. So this is all about honoring Atlanta's historical and agricultural connection to peach trees, and also using confidence and attitude of hip hop to kind of influence these really beautiful prints and graphics. So taking elements truly extracted from the city and then kind of repurposing them in an apparel collection. So we started with like a color narrative. And so what this was all about looking deep into the city and kind of pulling some imagery that, you know, was Atlanta. And as a result, we kind of found this really fun and bright and vibrant color palette that was lots of pinks and greens. And from there is where we start to work as a collective team. So this was the work of our graphic counterparts, where they developed just like a really tight and incredible strategy with some of the work that we had done as a color and trim team. So they have designed something as small and simple as a hang tag or a zipper pull. There's a design decision around the swoosh that is on these pieces as well. The draw cords, striped tape on the hem of a short, and of course within the actual print and pattern of the short as well. So we take all of those elements and work with an apparel designer as well, who determines the fit, if there should be those, just what construction the apparel piece looks like. And we put it all together and it creates this pretty incredible body of work. So here are just some detail shots of what that looks like. But this next page kind of showcases maybe a little bit of where my work would come in, where I'm looking at all of the colors of these products and making sure that they all look really good together. They're a harmonious family. We don't have too much in pink or too much in green, or, you know, like I said, those range of Alexes. Is there something for Alex who still wants a part of this, but is maybe looking for a black hoodie as opposed to a pink one? But is there something for that expressive consumer, that expressive version of Alex who wants the pink or the green tracksuit? So that's a part of my role. And another way that we would visualize that would be to look at what we call a laydown. So this is what I like to call kind of like merchandise apparel Sudoku, where you kind of like lay everything out and make sure that you can mix and match and see how an outfit with that hoodie on the top left would work with the white short or the pink short or the green short, and just make sure that there's a harmony, there's a balance between all of those pieces. So for the next bit of work that I'll share, it was for LeBron James. I'm sure most of you know he is a basketball player and he's a signature athlete at Nike. So what that means is that he'll get a signature both apparel and shoe collection. So I helped work on the apparel collection, and once again, I'm just going to keep drilling that. We always start with the consumer. And in this case, it is LeBron. So we're making a collection for him specifically. And, but it also goes into more of a mainstream distribution where we're looking at kids in the US or athletes in the US, as well as China. So factoring in that global perspective, I, a designer, need to consider those different geographies, different skin tones, different attitudes, like different cultural references to colors and materiality. But outside of that, after we kind of understand the consumer, we go into a bit of the narrative. So since this collection is primarily for LeBron, he kind of expressed that he wanted something that was kind of military inspired, that kind of had a different, almost like tenacity to it. So we, as a team, came up with the concept that LeBron is an athlete that conquers many landscapes, both on and off the court, no matter the elements. So he has this tenacity both on the court, but as well as, you know, he's not afraid to stick up for what he believes in or voice his opinion, whether it's expressing a political point of view or just, you know, saying whatever he feels needs to be said. So with that in mind, this concept of no matter the elements, we kind of took that into our design thinking as well. So I crafted this color narrative that kind of pulls from different landscapes as well. So we have kind of like this sand or dune type of landscape, an Arctic space for that frostbite colorway, looking at kind of like a lava or darkened terrain, as well as a kind of a very classic military green. And kind of had fun. We always have fun with like the naming conventions of different palettes. Once again, no matter the industry, it's always like one of the best parts. And this one kind of has like a G.I. Joe inspired vibe to the naming convention. So we just had a blast kind of like diving in fully to this theme. So another snapshot of how this collection turned out. Once again, I think like that concept of color Sudoku, I wanted to make sure that all of these pieces and colorways looked great together. We ended up adding in a little bit of like an orange pop just to kind of have something for maybe that expressive consumer. And in terms of details, this is kind of the space that we focused on. So some high-vis details on that draw cord. We integrated LeBron's mantra with our graphics, and our graphic designer also came up with like this really incredible theme of like a spray painted textured logo that was inspired by, once again, some like military style bags. My brother was in the Army, so it's like having him send photos of like some of his gear to help inspire the project. So a little bit of behind the scenes on this as well, because I think it's kind of weird to be able to visualize something from like a color palette then to a straight garment. But these are some of the tools that we would use. So the apparel designer would draw these flats. Graphic designer would come in and add the different graphic details and elements. And then I, as a color designer, would then go in and kind of put them all on one page and make sure that the color, print, and pattern all looked good and right and balanced. So this is one colorway, and then this is the next. So this is looking at that green space. So speaking of LeBron, it's really interesting because after my time at Nike, I had some family stuff that brought me back to Michigan. Nike was awesome, really great experience. But it was also so great to be back in Michigan, kind of like in these automotive roots. So I found myself at General Motors. I was really excited to be a part of that opportunity. But one of the first projects that I was brought on to was the new Hummer EV. And it was pretty wild to see that LeBron was the spokesperson for this vehicle, just because it was once again, like one of the last collections that I worked on at Nike, and then yet here he is again. Like, we took one selfie together and he just like keeps following me. It's so weird. Like, LeBron, I'm married, what are you doing? Just kidding. But all jokes aside, I'm really happy to be a part of this project, a part of this team. I can't share too much work just because it's not quite out yet. And automotive, as you know, is just longer lead time. So there will be some really exciting stuff coming up within the next coming months. But ultimately, it's just pretty wild to see, you know, two worlds that seem so far apart, and just the connectivity that comes between them. So speaking of connectivity, just kind of going back to the key theme of this, the speaker series, Craft Connections, I just wanted to share some areas that I feel are kind of essential, no matter the craft, no matter, I guess, the industry. I think if you're in a creative space, you always need to focus on your consumer, or who your target audience is, who they are, what they're doing, what they're interested in. I think paying attention to that and researching that is wholly beneficial. Next, just a narrative. I think understanding your consumer is step one, understanding what their needs are or what they may be looking for is step number two. And then kind of taking that and crafting something, one, that gives them a solution for what they are missing, but also doing it in a creative way and packaging it up in an incredible narrative. I know we're all storytellers in one way or another, but I don't think I could stress that concept enough. I think, and once you have that, I think that leads to my next point of the team. If you know who your consumer is, you know what story you're trying to tell, it's so much easier to get your crew of brilliant minds together to work towards a common goal or work towards the best possible product or solution. I think no matter if you're like a worker bee at, you know, if I'm a worker bee, I have a manager and manager's manager, but I think, you know, I've been a part of a lot of teams where the collective idea is respected. And I think some of the best work comes out of that, despite any type of hierarchy that may be in place. So I think, yeah, just teamwork makes the dream work. I can't stress that enough. But that is all that I had for today. If you want to see any more of my work, that's my website. I always love Instagram friends, so feel free to get in touch in any way. But yeah, that's all I've got.
I'm trying to start video. Again, technology, it's magic till it's not. Thank you, Tara. It was really great. Obviously, I was privy to much of what you talked today, but hearing all the color commentary that went with it beyond the slideware was really awesome. Obviously, being a sports buff, that certainly helped. But just the way you talked about connecting, you know, people, and particularly putting the customer at the center, and colors and cultures and cities, and how craft is able to connect all those things was pretty awesome. So thanks for the deep dive and the Nike stuff, particularly the LNC. For sure. So attendee friends, you can fire off any questions you have in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. So I'll let some of those begin to collect. And meanwhile, I'm going to ask you a few questions. All right. So one of the things I want to talk about is that you mentioned, and we mentioned in your intro, you have strong ties to Michigan, Detroit. Obviously, it sounds like you have strong ties during your time in Portland.
Yes.
So you have strong ties to where you are locally at that point in time, but you also talked about how you have this kind of global perspective and global point of view. So how do you balance that and manage those connections about, you know, being rooted with where you are, but understanding the world's a mighty big place?
Totally. I think so much of it is just being aware that that's a concept in the first place. I know, like, I struggled with that for a while until, you know, you get these like marketing reports of like, oh, this is going to like so many different countries or so many different spaces. So I think I think locally, it's great to be able to just do lots of research on the different areas. I think there's so many incredible resources, like on the internet. Like you can jump onto YouTube and be connected to somebody across the world and get insight into their life. So I think that's really incredible, and utilizing the just teamwork or research to kind of understand the different geographies. But outside of that, I think there's nothing better than traveling firsthand or experiencing a new place or a new culture. So always a big advocate for travel whenever possible.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
It's just when I look at your deck, obviously it's very well designed, very visual. But one of the things you and I talked about is, in particular for many people on this thing, when we think about craft, we think about the perfect picture or pushing pixels to be the absolute, absolute bestest website. But so much what you do, and we've even talked about a little bit, the era of voice, but so much of what you do is about that really sensory thing of touch and how that touch can create connections as well, particularly when you talk about materials and textures and like. So can you talk about that sensory and how that impacts craft and in making those meaningful connections?
Totally. Yeah, I think no matter the industry, you want something that, like the tactile element, it should once again just serve the consumer that it's going to. Like there's been countless times where you're trying to get a new technology or something that's cool and exciting, but it's like it feels like garbage, and it's like you need to understand that you can't put that in the world. So really just finessing that and making sure what we call it's like the hand feel, that lines up to what someone's expectation is. I think too, there's also like kind of an interesting, maybe like something that happens in your brain where you see something that looks like a real metal, and then you touch it and it's not cold, and it's not, it doesn't have like the same tactile qualities as a metal piece would. There's something that happens there as well. So that's, at least like in the automotive space, that's something that we have to pay quite a bit of attention to. And I know at GM, we really try not to like be deceptive or like trick our consumer into thinking that they're getting something that they're not. And so yeah, material honesty and making sure, like finessing things to make sure that they're high quality, once again, no matter what industry, I think is a really important part of the job.
Well, your career and obviously your job relies on your multiple creative talents, but also one thing you told me about is that you work a lot with ceramics and clay. And so, which is again, a very tactile thing. Can you talk a little bit about how, there's probably a blurring of lines, I believe, from your professional and personal passions and how that impacts what you do?
Yeah. I think it just helps me be better when I'm on my 9 to 5. Because to your point, I sit in front of a computer for 8 or 9 hours a day, and then it's just, I found so much joy in this new hobby where I'm able to basically just like play with mud, and there's not an expectation that it's going to be absolutely perfect or absolutely straight, or however you want to kind of calibrate it. It's just, it's going to be imperfect. That's the nature of the medium, which I find so challenging and frustrating, but it's also really great to be able to kind of unwind into something that feels, just very simple. And I'm basically just, it's like, if you look at it for what it is, I'm playing with mud and then I'm heating it up for a while, and then it comes out in a different form. And, but I found so much joy just in that process, and kind of taking time to disconnect so that I can be really on and focus when I am in front of my computer. So kind of, awesome. They're very separate, but I think they help me.
Yeah.
On both sides.
All right, I'll give you a follow-up blurring the worlds question. So I mentioned earlier that your husband, Josh Magee, is part of our creative community here in Detroit, and I personally have the pleasure to work with them. But like, how do those worlds blur? Like, from what you do as a creative and what he does as a creative, I got to believe there's some story swapping and some note sharing going on there.
Totally. It's actually so much fun. I'm like, so obsessed with him. I think he's brilliant, but it's been a blast just working at home in the same space. like, I can't share too much of what the work that I do just because it's highly confidential. But I guess the more that I get entwined with like the ad community and little projects here and there, I'm always like, hey, can I read this email to you to make sure it sounds okay? To make sure I'm using the right verbs, or and he kind of does the same. He'll like swing in and pitch an idea, or if he's working on a freelance project just to get my point of view, or obviously he's in film, or in video, and sometimes he'll ask me to watch and edit and see what my take is as somebody who's like a little bit removed from the space. So I think there's just so much value in our similarities and differences. I think one project that was like particularly funny is one day they were like cranking on a project and they just needed a scratch video of a female voice. And on my lunch, he was like, hey, can you read this? And I was like, all right. I'm like, let me do my vocal warm-ups and get this going, get my tea. But so I did the scratch, but they ended up using it. And so it's just like so weird. It's so fun. But yeah, so we're having fun. It's been a blast.
Oh, that's awesome. Hey, you touched on your very last slide, and I just want to see if you can provide some additional, expand on a little bit more about, one team, one dream, and the power teamwork, just because you hit it on during your presentation. And just when you and I were talking and prepping for this, like I could literally hear the passion in your voice when you talked about this. Cause I think so often that creative can very much feel like it's on you and you got to carry the load and I need to be creative, when in fact, to use your phrase, it does take a village. So can you just, I guess, add a little more fuel to that fire, that belief that is in fact true?
Yeah, for sure. I think like the idea of feeling like you need to do it all yourself, or like you said, carry the load, I think is just like a really tough expectation to put on yourself. It's like nothing happens singularly. Like you're not going to make a commercial just by yourself. I mean, like maybe, but I think in all of the circumstances we're talking about, it's like there are so many people involved. And I think just being able to share ideas and, create an environment where like people aren't pitted against each other. Like if you share an idea, like knowing that it won't turn into a competition on how to bubble that up or get it through. It's like, no, we're all working towards the same goal. Why don't we just leverage the strength of everybody to get there? So I think especially now where teams and maybe agencies or corporations, they are a bit bigger. I think it's tough to kind of just put that pressure on yourself. But I just think there's a lot of value too in recognizing your creative counterparts and how talented they are. And I think even like from taking credit of work, it's like, I really respect the people that I work with. Like I want to share that glory or that win with them. So, and not like take it all for my own. Because if I was asked to do that again by myself, like that's not going to go well. So, I think it's a great thing. Like I said, I'll keep saying it. Teamwork makes the dream work, and it makes everything easier and better, especially when you can just like all get on the same vibe and just kind of like crank out the work.
See, I say that too, but when it comes out of your mouth, it seems so much more profound. So thank you for
saying a little snap or two.
Well, for many of the folks that I know in the industry and even at NMRM know that I'm a huge shoe guy. So of course, when I talked to you, I had to ask about, Tinker Hatfield, the guy behind many of the famous Jordans and Air Maxes, and you shared a lot of great stories. But one of the things you shared with me really struck a chord with me, and that was that story you told about the young designer reaching out to him. So can you take it from there and kind of share that story? Because I think it's a really great lesson for us all.
For sure. And I guess for those who don't have too much background on Tinker Hatfield, he's basically like revered as a god basically in the shoe industry. Like he just came up with a ton of really great and incredible innovative stuff. And I think I could say like at the time he kind of went through a lot of this work at Nike. Some of it he was doing on his own, just like late nights in the studios. And of course it takes a village to make it happen, but a lot of his ideas are just like out of this world incredible. Hence how we got to where he's at right now. But I had a close friend, a close coworker who just went for it and emailed him like there's a specific Nike email. He just like typed the name in and went for it. Got some time on the calendar, like a half hour. And this individual was like met up with him and just like had coffee. And what Tinker said, he's like, I don't know why more people don't do this. Like, I'm here all day. Like, he's kind of coasting, like still working on product, but like he's at a pretty chill level. So the designer just was like so amazed that despite the fact that we had this person who was deemed as a celebrity on campus, like to the point where somebody would walk past him and people would be like, whoa. Like, he was just able to sit down and have a conversation and get advice. And not to say that he didn't go into the conversation prepared to, like ask good questions or, like seek specific advice, but Tinker was just super open to sitting down and vibing. Like Tinker was interested in talking to him just as much, just because he's like, yeah, I would love to talk to a young designer, like just for his perspective. So I think it's just kind of a good lesson, and like we're all just humans at the end of the day. So it's like pretty, it's cool to kind of see an example of that where it's like, oh, okay, it could potentially reach out to somebody that you look up to.
That's awesome. Yeah. So those beats of take the shot, because you never know if they might just accept the invite or reply back to it. And the fact that I've heard similar stories where other people that, there's this aura about them and they won't reach out. So they feel like, oh, they're untouchable. And it's like, no, they want to be reached to and drop some knowledge as well as, like you said, Tinker enjoyed getting some knowledge from the next generation of designers.
Yeah. I think people are generally pretty nice too. So
we're just people.
Yeah, just a couple of humans.
Okay, so I'm going to go to the Q&A. Are you ready?
Ready. What do we got?
All right, here we go. We'll do some rapid fire. What similarities exist between Portland and Detroit in terms of like the advertising or I guess broader creative communities?
Oh, that's fun. Actually, Portland does have a couple of like pretty big agencies there. I think like oftentimes where you do have maybe larger corporations, there's a big need for that. So I would say maybe a little bit smaller out there, but in Portland that is, but I think the similarity and parallel still exists, where like, I know when I was at Nike, those like the kind of ad counterparts, for lack of a better word, would be on campus or be, very much involved in the process, just to make sure that the narrative and story we were telling internally got out and made sure it went to the public, which I think happens here as well. So I think pretty close parallels.
Nice. Yeah. We love us some Detroit, but we're always curious what the other kids are doing. I love how this one was from, first question right out of the gate. Someone is trying to connect data with creativity. The question is, what are some of the ways you collect your consumer data?
Oh, that is a good question. So I think a lot of it, like there are typically individuals where that's their job, that's their role to provide data, distill it, and come back with, like a bullet points of who we're targeting. So at GM, it's like our marketing counterparts. So what that looks like is they often have big, how do I say, like where they have lots of people, ask them a survey of questions, and just kind of like first person accounts. A lot of it is also kind of like at a mega or macro level in terms of just like general consumer values and shifting. Like green movement is happening, things are moving more electric. It's like that's going to be a new wave of life. So there's things that are maybe like on that bigger scale that are more like economic, down to maybe more like consumer specific, where it's more so like getting out and actually talking to people and seeing what they want or what they're looking for. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
So this question starts with a shout out. Great job, Tara. There, thumbs up, way to go. I love that. Gotta love the real-time feedback. I actually love the question as well. Is it tough to keep design decks organized working with larger teams? Sounds like a lot of back and forth. And I'm sure many of us go through that as well. So I love your thoughts on that.
Yes, and I think that also goes back to like the teamwork thing. Like find your rhythm, find your vibe between your team, because things are, I think in any industry, there's changes happening all the time. Like for us, we have to sign our documents with timestamps because like V1, V2, it's not good enough because you could have 8 changes in one day. So it's like, find your labeling and your organization, get your good server. I think it's very much product, team, and maybe industry specific, but like Nike, we used really big servers where we just kind of like kept everything and did timestamps and dates. And once like a project wrapped, we like kind of archived everything and made sure the final and best was like lived in one folder where everyone's like garbage work files were just kind of like, you know, in a separate organization. GM kind of is a similar setup where like if we're passing files back and forth, we just have to, just be really diligent about, time and just how we mark them and work into them as well. But like, data specifically, I guess that's all I could really speak to as a designer.
So it's not a question, I'm going off script. Follow-up question though. So I got to imagine like you showed like, you know, a PowerPoint today that was, you know, slideware, and we're all familiar with that, but I have to believe for you, because what I took away from your answer was that, you know, you have to figure out what the process, what the craft of presenting your craft is. For you, how much are your presentations slideware, well designed, but also like things you can touch and feel and on a table as well?
I would say it's like half and half, to your point, just because it is, at the end of the day, it's a physical product. It's not digital. So half of it is showing visually, and typically when we do have a presentation, we'll bring samples along to say like, this material that's rendered here is this, and then whoever is, you know, reviewing or signing off can hold it in their hands and physically see the scale, the tactility, basically all of those elements that you would kind of want. And then there's also like additional validation where we go through different stages of actually, you know, mocking something up to make sure that we like the actual intent.
Okay.
Yeah.
What GM vehicle would you love to have an opportunity to work on?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I've recently moved into the world of trucks, and that I think is pretty incredible. And it's really challenging, but I'm excited to be a part of that. So I think I'll keep you posted.
All right.
It's still new, but I think it's just really different. I think it's cool being able to design for something or for someone that isn't necessarily me. I think that is like a cool and fun challenge of design. Like the products you make typically aren't for you, they're for somebody else. So this, I've just really enjoying getting to know the truck consumer and everything that they're interested in.
Nice. All right. So the review, presentation, approval process between General Motors and Nike, how are they same and how are they different?
I think the process is kind of the same, kind of like what I outlined at the beginning, where it's like you start around a central concept, then you figure out who you're targeting your consumer, you design for them, whether it's like 5 different trim levels or 5 different tops or shorts. I think like that point kind of looks the same. Then it kind of just stems off to the different products. I think differences, apparel I would say is much faster paced, as you can imagine. Like our design process there would be anywhere from 3 months to 6 months, and then you get your samples and you move on. But this is at automotive, what I'm in now is like I'm assigned to a product, and it takes about like a year and a half, maybe even 2 years to go through that design life cycle. There's just so many more elements to consider. So I think time, like this product life cycle, timing that goes into designing, price point, those are probably the key differences.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a couple back-to-back questions, but you answer this how you see fit and comfortable with. A lot going on in the world right now on multiple fronts. So with everything that's going on, not only in the US, but again, it is in fact the world, is that changing the way you think, or is it changing the way you feel, or obviously there's a lot going on. So as someone in Detroit, Michigan, who has a global point of view, does it impact your day to day, I guess is the cleanest way I can ask it.
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on how you want to look at that question, like arguably we're all impacted in many, many ways. I think professionally, yes, I guess like in terms of the pandemic, that it's completely changing the way that we're working. I think in terms of like many other social issues, it's keeping everybody accountable and in check. I feel really grateful to work for both GM and have worked for Nike, where companies are taking a stand and having a point of view. And I guess I'm everything that's going on in the world, I'm just hoping that it's going to result in people making proactive changes, whether that's in how we work or how we interact with one another. I'm feeling optimistic, especially based on what I've seen everybody responding to, I guess, in all aspects.
Well said. All right, so let's make crescendo. What is particularly inspiring right now? Like, we can jump in, just excited. And it could be multiple things. It doesn't have to be one.
That's a great question. I think right now this is going to sound like kind of maybe a little lame hippy dippy, but I think it's been really beautiful being at home and being able to watch the seasons change. I know that's a weird response, but we just keep talking about how it's really cool to be able just to like watch things grow and be able to go on walks at lunch and just kind of look at new things that are happening in the neighborhood, like things that I wouldn't necessarily pay attention to or be grateful for in my day-to-day, just because I'm like hustling, bustling, like still hustling, bustling, but just in a different context has been really lovely. And some of the, opportunity to kind of take in simplicity, like you said, amidst everything that's going on has been a nice, I guess, literal breath of fresh air here and there. But outside of that, not to be like so lame, but this has been great too. I'm happy to be part of this experience. This is cool. I always love getting to know different people, especially that are in Detroit. So it's been great to have a little bit more visibility to the Adcraft community. And I've been enjoying the speaker series so far. So hoping the same for this one.
I assure you the same, very much so. You've been awesome, even exceeded expectations. And I'm not gonna lie, I had high expectations for you, Tara. So
right on.
Thank you for doing this. It's really great. And I think it is really meaningful and a huge part of Adcraft for us to, we have a lot of social and fun events and the like, but I think the opportunity for us to give back and provide inspiration and maybe, dare I say, education to the community is super huge for everyone involved. Hold on, I just got a ping on chat. I might have to give some more of your info. Oh, Debbie's giving all your contact info from your slides. Get ready for your inbox to get super filled up. You're welcome.
Howdy, everybody. Yeah, bring it.
Yes, and everyone should follow her on Instagram. She's a good follow. She's got some really great pics. So, she gave us open invitation to stock. So take advantage of that. But all kidding aside, thank you. Much
Thank you.
appreciation and gratitude. And not only did I enjoy conversation, I enjoyed being connected to you now for crafts. And eventually at some point, I'll have to take you out for some cocktails as a true appreciation and gesture of gratitude.
This time I'll ask you questions. You've just been talking about me this whole time. Get ready.
All right. As long as you send the question in advance like I did. No.
Perfect.
So that's our show, everyone, today. Quick bit of housekeeping and reminder that this was 3 of 5 Tuesday Talks as part of the Adcraft Day Show. Next week, we have Travis Chalk, who's the CEO and co-founder of Baseballism. So that we may or may be talking more about sports and sports apparel. Spoiler alert, but a really great dude and interesting guy as well. So the momentum of inspiration and education, like I said, continues. So thanks again.
Yeah.
Appreciate everyone making the time. And once again, major shout out to you, Tara, for being part of our community and for sharing your thoughts today.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Be well.